When we look at investment and consumption, what is the balance between the two?
Elsie, who's your teacher? Because that is the most important question. That is the fundamental question in economics when you try and form an opinion on the performance of an economy. That balance between investment and consumption. But let me explain the technicality of it with a very good example. I want to put up a factory. I want to produce something, plastic bottles, whatever, wooden chairs, doesn't matter. But I need to convince the bank that this will work. I know how to do it, I know where to get the equipment, and I think there's a market in Namibia and I can sell 100 chairs a month, and I draw up a budget and a business plan and all that stuff that the bank usually whacks you on the forehead even before you start building the thing. But I want to borrow $1 million from the bank. And the bank look at all the stuff I've drawn up and the projections and they said, fine, do you have collateral? And I say, yes, I've got a rich uncle and he's got 200 cattle and he will sort of guarantee me and but eventually I get the money. I have the confidence that it will work. So that concept that I mentioned, business confidence, it is there. It's not always rational, but it's a vital ingredient. I have to be confident. I have to be in my own mind. I have to believe that it can work. Now, the bank has given me the money. And I find the plot of land in Northern Industrial and I want to put up a factory. And I go to City Sand and Bricks or City Bricks and Sand, whichever, and I order 100,000 bricks. Now here's the catch. Immediately, I've turned into a consumer of what? Of bricks.
Yeah.
Even before I've started the investment. Well, that initial step in the investment side is at the same time the trigger that turns me into a consumer. And I will also have to pay the people who works on the site, and I will have to buy cement from Megabolt and. But can you see what I'm trying to demonstrate? You asked me about the balance, and I said that is the most important question. There has to be a balance between investment and consumption. We can go on like some of the Chinese provincial governments, just build one big building after another, and 10 years later we realize, the first one of the 20 that we built is not even fully occupied yet by tenants. So what are we going to do? So do you see, there's no balance there between investment and consumption. Because the tenant, the guy who wants to buy a place to live or pay for a place to live, he's the consumer. He's the consumer of dwelling services. So this is now the point I'm trying to make. The balance between the two, the very, very important aspect. I want to put up a factory, I get the money, I'm an investor. I go to the bricks factory, I buy 100,000 bricks, I'm a consumer of bricks. You can't separate the two. If you do, you become a typical Chinese real estate project, where you build hundreds of buildings, but there's no consumption, or the consumption is lagging. And you find this all over the world. I can Abu Dhabi. I've seen the most grandiose projects in Abu Dhabi that they stand empty. Why? Because the balance between investment and consumption is not there. Now let's take this a step further. Let's make it practical. I've borrowed $1 million from the bank. I have built the factory. I was the consumer of those services and those products to build the factory. But now I need to sell my chairs. And what happens? Month after month after month, I do my rounds, I get my report back. One chair sold in Rundu, one sold in Kietmans, one sold in Upu. They're not really very popular. They don't take off. So what is lacking there? the consumption side. The consumer is not convinced. And this is what is so important in development. You know, we're very fond of throwing around that concept, sustainable development. And then we make the mistake, like the Chinese did, by thinking if we just go and borrow more and more money. Now remember, if you borrow, what it translates to? Debt.
Yes.
And you know that is a swear word. Debt is a 4-letter word. You know the trouble that the government is in every year in April with a budget, because they cannot live without taking on more debt. Why? Because the consumption side is lacking. The balance has been lost, and when it does, after a few more years, it's just a statistic, it just becomes another Air Namibia. It's just an investment that has gone bad because the balance, investment, consumption, was allowed to get out of hand, become an imbalance, or never developed in the first place, because people had this whole idea that if you just keep on throwing money into investment without any regard for the consumer, you will eventually have an economy. And the catch is, you don't. So that balance is very important.
Let's quickly go for another break.